So I was born and raised in Altadena, California. I came from a family with a strong military heritage. My grandfather was in World War I, and he was on the docks of New York, and just to be deployed overseas, and it happened to be November 11th, 1918, which was Armistice Day, so he did not have to go. My uncle was a officer in the U.S. Army in World War II, and he used to always joke with me that there was a famous picture of an American officer jumping over to shake hands with the Russians when they became our allies, and he always joked with me that he was the one in the picture, but I know that wasn't true. My father was a veterinarian, and he was in the Army Reserve in the Veterinary Corps, and he made it to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. I came from a large house in Altadena with a strong family unit as well. All my grandparents and cousins and aunt and uncles lived nearby myself. As I said, my father was a veterinarian. I used to go down to his hospital and watch him work and attend some surgeries, and so I got used to blood and tissue, and it never really bothered me at all. My brother and I would have to go down there and clean out cages a lot of times when we got grounded, and then we would always help him as much as we could, because we enjoyed his work and what he did for the animals. One time he actually clipped off some tails of some puppy dogs right in our kitchen. And I put them in an envelope and took them to school for show and tell. I graduated from Pasadena High School and got accepted to Washington State, where most of my family attended a school up there. And then after my first year, I happened to get drafted. I went to the Selective Service and the draft board, both of whom denied my deferment. So it actually, instead of going right to basic training, I had a couple of weeks off before I did go to to be inducted to basic training. Let's see, I got my basic training which was near Monterey, California. I was a good athlete in high school, baseball and gymnastics, and then in college, gymnastics and lightweight football. So I had no trouble passing any and all of the PT tests that the Army threw at me, and I loved doing them, actually. And so I excelled in the written tests also. They wanted me to join OCS, but I turned it down so I could do my duty and get out as soon as possible. Also, I didn't want to command any other men or carry a weapon even. So I chose the medical staff, or the medical path rather. The outfit that heavily recruited me and caught my eye was Special Forces. I was really impressed by their presentation, and I passed all their battery of tests. So I chose Special Forces medical training. I knew one, it was the best Army training available, and I didn't want to be an intel behind the desk. And as a private, I was making $86 a month. And after medical training came airborne and jump school, and jump pay was $55 a month extra. So that appealed to me as well. So, and then after that, I was off to my AIT training, my advanced medical training, the regular medical training for the medics, and that was at Fort Sam Houston, and it was basically just how to put on dressings and first aid elements and how to put somebody on a stretcher and that stuff and thing. There I was introduced to a company and asked me if I wanted to join there with the COs, but I wanted to train with other medics who would be armed in combat. I wanted no special treatment. So after Fort St. Houston, after my AAT, I got orders to go to Fort Benning. There's the same Fort St. Houston in San Antonio, Texas, and then I got orders to go to Fort Benning and jump school. Jump school there was where all the services, the Rangers, the Navy, that's where they were all trained for airborne, even though it was the home of the infantry. So we went to jump school the first week. After we learned about, we spent a week learning about the do's and don'ts of jumping and watching the chute riggers at work, and finally learning how to pack our own chutes. Then we went to their Tower Week. We spent the first day jumping off of a 6-foot platform, and we did PLFs, platform landing falls. They taught you how to fall and learn how to roll so as not to break any bones. You go on your ankle and your knee and your hips, shoulders, and just kind of roll instead of landing flat. This is just when we were hanging by the harnesses there to get us used to feeling what it would be like with all the equipment on and everything. Here's a guy who did not do the platform landing fall right. And so the first thing we went to do after that was the 32-foot tower and zip line. We would go up the ladders there and then stand in the door and look out and then jump, and then connected to the zip line, we jump on down. First time is kind of scary looking down there, but then you jump down and find out that everything is fine. And the rest of the day we did over and over and over. Then we dropped from a free fall from 250-foot towers, like amusement parks kind of, and then we would fall down off, do that over and over until we were exhausted. And of course we had to do our PLFs, our perfectly executed roll from the tower. If the sergeant or officer, anybody saw you not doing it correctly, then they would. For our jumps now, we did 5 jumps about 1,250 feet with the static line. We did one over trees, a tree jump, an electrical wire jump, a water jump, and 2 open fields. Here we are going out of the back of a 130. We did 1 jump out of a jet. And as I was approaching the door, usually you stood in the door and jumped off, but or run out the back of here like the 130. But when I went out the jet, I was about 6 feet from the door actually, and all of a sudden I was vertical, I was parallel, and I just shot out of that jet I was sucked out, and I went flying up instead of down. I was one of the first ones out of the plane, and I was the last one. I received my jump wings, and then I took off back to Fort Sam Houston for the Special Forces medical training. The medical training there was with the University of Texas doctors and physicians and Army doctors. We had small classes in anatomy, physiology, histology, pathology, parasitology, emphasis on that because of tropical diseases in Vietnam. Then we were off to Fort Bragg after Fort Sam, and Fort Bragg was the headquarters of Special Forces, and that's where we learned combat and Special Forces medic training. First was 2 weeks of survival training out in the swamps of North Carolina, and then we were cross-trained in all the dogmas of special forces, operations and intelligence. We had classes at Fort Devon, Massachusetts. Then we were cross-trained in communications, engineering, and then we had our weapons training where we were taught to disassemble, reassemble, and fire every weapon that Special Forces had. I was never going to use a weapon in Vietnam. I didn't want to, but I became I did become an expert in almost all of the training. So the Special Forces said it was a shame I was going to be a CO. Next, we were trained in some serious medicine. We treated burns and goats. We did practice tracheotomies, cricoid. Each ring on the trachea is called a tricoid, and so we would cut through there, and you could get an airway, and it came in very valuable to me later on. We had dissected pigs. We had dog lab. And in dog lab, we each had a patient that was a dog, and we took them to a chamber. We anesthetized them, put them in a chamber, and then shot them in the thigh. Then afterwards, we would debride the wound, take out the bullet, extract the bullet, and then suture them up, and then bring them back to recovery. So that was part of the training, and definitely we spent a short time at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where I learned orthopedics and infectious diseases. We learned how to splint and cast people and get them back to an ambulatory state. And all the infectious diseases came in very handy with Vietnam. We actually became PAs, physician's assistants. We were basically the same as doing everything a doctor learned, except for the internship and residency. It was a very accelerated program, and my time spent there was almost a year. And so then finally on September 30th, September 1st, I got my orders to Long Binh, Vietnam, and October 1st, 1969, was my first day in Vietnam. I was assigned to the 173rd Airborne because by then the Special Forces units were being withdrawn and not replaced in Vietnam. When I first began humping with my fatigue uniform that we had, none of our insignia, of course, would be colored. It was all black. The wings and the army and patches, everything was black instead of colored. Our platoon, like I was saying, we were patrolling and recon, looking for ways to interdict the enemy and primary searches for cash. In the platoon line, I got to go back here. In the platoon line, the lieutenant and the RTO radio man and myself, who were usually here in the rear, and all of the platoon. I don't like this platoon. This patrol is kind of crazy because they're way too close together. So it was nothing like that. We did keep a lot of distance between each other. So we would search for the caches of weapons and ammo and food. This was my first RTO radio transit operator, and we had shared a hooch. You can kind of see the sandbags there. This was here's another guy that kind of shared our hooch with us. He was a Kit Carson scout. A lot of the DC were induced to chew holes and help us search for weapons and things. So it was nice to the BC at that time. They were diminished, and they would always they would ambush us or attack us, and took their best shot, and then they'd run away. Here's a picture of a jungle trail that we would have to negotiate. In my valley, there were jungles and rice paddies. So we had to go from one thing to another, wide open spaces to the jungles. We had a great point man that would take us through all of these jungle trails, and so that was nice. Um, our point man, here's a point man here. Our point man was Big O, and he would help us go through the jungle trails. I okay, and like I say, I was usually near the end of the patrol of the stick. This I usually carried about 55, 60 pounds of supplies in my medical bag. I had extra supplies, more than a regular combat medic, with surgical tools, morphine, IV solutions, pressure bandages, splints. These were the most important things for the pressure dressings that we would use. And when we were out during the day, we were rarely out at night. Medics were also in charge of the water treatment, have to keep that clean for everybody, and soldiers had to take their pills to fix the chlorinate the water, filter the water, and otherwise they'd get a 16. We did have supplies dropped to us every 10 days. We had supplies dropped to. There we go. And they would come air by air, never by ground. Sometimes a drop like this, usually Hueys to helicopters, and every once in a while a Chinook, those big, huge double bladed choppers that would just blow everything all over the place. So we have to hold stuff down. We also 73rd also had our gunships, our gunnies, as well as the dust offs. Here's a gunny ship chopper. On my very first day in country, I got dropped off into the valley in the morning, and I was with my new platoon, and we got hit with mortars, snipers, AK-47 fire in an ambush. There was one medic there that I was replacing, and myself, and two of the soldiers got wounded during all this firefight. And so I took care of one gentleman who had sucking chest wounds, and his jaw was torn apart. So I put pressure dressings on the chest wounds, and I was able to he wasn't breathing, so I was able to do one of those cricothyroidectomies. So it did come into play right up on my very first day. Then the other medic was taking care of what we called a dust off. Dust off got there very quickly. Came to pick up our two men. I put my guy inside. He put his man inside, and then he jumped into the chopper. And he said, "I've only got 2 weeks in country, so I'm out of here now. See you later." And so after he left, the platoon and the whole company saw that I treated this guy well, and so they accepted me. When they found out I was Special Forces trained, then they were really impressed. And I guess we were in short supply over there of medics, so it was nice to have a Special Forces trained medic in the battalion. In our valley, like I say, in our valley, we had 4 platoons. Oh, wait a minute. Here's some stats about the helicopters. There were. I was so proud and grateful for all our helicopters and the pilots. Just how many we lost, and how many crewmen were lost, and how many hours. Like I said, our biggest problem in the valley was booby traps. Virtually every day we would go out and maybe hit a booby trap. Our point man found many of them. Big O. He was a great point man, and he wanted to be out in front of all. There's Big O. He wanted to be out in front of all. He's not very big. Huh? He wanted to be in front and take the lead, and he did a great job. Like I say, he came out alive. I was the smallest guy, and my size kind of fit in with the tunnel rats. And I didn't mind being a tunnel rat or being in the tunnels or anything, because I remember in school when I was a kid, I used to practice in caves behind our neighborhood. Here's a very thin fish wire you can see. Here's a detonator down there. Here's some bungee sticks. This is inside of one of the caves, possible bungee sticks. Here's the top shows that shows where the cave is, and the bottom shows the entrance. Here's an arbor lifting up the entrance to the cave. And here's some other bungee sticks and booby traps. Here's another booby trap under the water in a stream. These fish line booby traps were incredibly hard to find. And the VC didn't really care if they killed us or not. They just wound us, and then that would ship people out of there just with their wounds. As I say, most of my wounds were shrapnel or AK 47 rounds. Stop the bleeding was the very important thing. We'd start IVs, we put pressure dressings on. Here's a whole bunch of guys treating this guy. And then here's a medic putting on the pressure dressing on his neck. They all had the tails on it, so you could tie around the wounded and apply constant pressure to it. The medics and the RTOs worked closest to pilots and the crew aboard the airships. Almost all the air ambulances had a medic. Well, all of the ambulances had a medic on board, and then we would communicate them with the man's condition that he had, and then they would come in and dust him off. And here's somebody getting on a dust off. They were there immediately. These guys were awesome. Their unarmed flying ambulances were named dust off from the call sign of the original arm. Like here's some statistics. 54% of the casualties were due to small arms. 93% of 390,000 wounded were survived because of dust offs. There was huge morale boost to all of us, knowing they would be within 100 minutes. I never had to wait more than 30, and it was probably less than that. Those dust offs were there right away. I was so grateful and proud of our helicopter pilots and crewmen, and it was awesome. I'd like to tell you about one of the closest calls I had was when my platoon was walking along the rice paddy dike, and a VC popped up out of the paddy about 2 o'clock, and he was only about 10 feet away. He took his AK-47, and he literally sprayed it from in front of me to behind me, just and then he turned and ran. Naturally, everybody in the platoon opened up, and not one round hit him. Kind of like me. He hit the guy in front of me as well as the man behind me. I began treating both men. The guy in front of me was hitting the stomach and the thigh. The guy behind me was hitting the elbow and the knee. I treated them both and called in the dust off. And I didn't even get hit, even though he swept his weapon right through me. I was in many firefights and ambushes, but this sticks to my mind the most. I should have been hit at point blank range. He missed me, and we missed him. So it was kind of, it's like you see in the movies, these guys run away and nobody ever hits them. There was another time that actually scared me, made me laugh at the same time. There was a VC sniper in a church near our platoon that was always popping shots at us just about every night. And we'd shoot a couple of rounds back and try to get him, but we never seemed to hit him. One night he shot one right by my head, so close I could literally, and then thudding into a sandbag next to my head. I know I was sober at the time, but what happened is I just started laughing. a picture of an old road, like a cartoon, a roadrunner cartoon with those balloons with the words in it, whoosh and thud. I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't have sense enough to be scared, but I laughed about it. The buddies and the rest of the company thought I'd gone nuts. Probably thought I'd been in the country too long. But that's what went through my mind when I heard it. I guess they say you never hear the one that gets you, so I'm glad that I did hear that one. Also, what we did during our pacification part of Vietnam service was med camps. We'd go down to the villages and we would treat all the people. We'd check them out every day and give them medical treatment, attempting to win the hearts and minds of the people through the program was called pacification. So I'd go into the villages and I would even eat with them sometime and drink with them. I had done that all my whole time in Vietnam. But then a little bit after Christmas, I got very sick and I had to be evacuated to the 64th Back Hospital in Queen Yan for 2 weeks. I told the doctor after the blood test that that a VDRL came for syphilis. And I said, well, wait a minute, there's no way that I have syphilis. I've been in the jungle 8 months. I haven't seen any kind of women or anything like that. And so you'd have to think about that again. Now, the diseases are caused by cells that have different shapes. There's round ones, there's square ones, there's rods. There's only 2 diseases that are spirals. They're called spirochetes. And one of those diseases is Susu-Gamushi disease that you can get from infected water or rat feces. And apparently, that's what I had done because of my involvement in the villages with their eating and drinking. But they finally figured out I had Susu-Gamushi fever, and then they sent me back to my outfit after that. Then there was another time where a war correspondent, came out to our platoon in the Ando Valley, and he wrote a story about me and my life, or my time over there in Vietnam as well as my life. Just a little bit. Wally has treated all types of Vietnamese people, from the fevered Mama San to the wounded enemy prisoner. He may have found his patient while in med camp, or maybe while on patrol with his unit. Many times an English-speaking Vietnamese boy will call for his help, or a grief-stricken Vietnamese mom will cry for Bac Si, Vietnamese for Doc. Unusual to most medics, the villagers call upon Doc to care for their sick or wounded animals. Ziegler recalled once a water buffalo Brahma bull charged at the point man of our patrol. The point man panicked and shot the bull in the leg. That was Big O. The bull was only means for plowing in the fields, and that concerned owner had. Remembering his father's technique, Doc extracted the round and brought the beast of burden back to its useful condition. And those bulls were water buffaloes were very important to the villagers. Here you can see an Arvin protecting these water buffaloes, checking out for mines, making sure everything was safe. While the kids, they were usually the ones that took care of all the water buffaloes, because you never really saw a male under the age of, you only saw males under age 12 or maybe over age 70. All the other males were VC. So it was very important to them to get their and then when it was over, Fort Lewis, Washington is where I landed my Freedom Bird, went back to the world there on September 30th, 1970. 11 months, 29 days after I got there. And that night, spent the night, and the next morning at Fort Lewis, Washington, My cousin picked me up. My cousin lived in Seattle, picked me up, and we drove out of the front gate of an Army base for the very last time, and I have not been back since. I wanted to share this kind of a coincidence regarding conscious objectors. This commemorative stone was dedicated, and it was dedicated on my birthday, May 15th. So I thought that was kind of a coincidence. It was dedicated on my birthday. Yeah, I never carried a weapon in Vietnam, so I was definitely a conscious objector. To all those who have established and were maintaining it. Here's a monument at Fort Sam Houston. There's a dust off. You can see the dust off and the combat medic there, and often the difference between life and death. Here's another combat medic memorial for World War II at Fort Sam Houston for the combat medics. This badge, it was my combat medical badge that we got in the Army, as opposed to a combat infantry badge. Ours was a CMB, that was a CIB. Now Special Forces still get the CIB. This is Mooch. This is the same guy you saw in that earlier clip, my RTO. He called me a couple of years ago and said that we had a 173rd reunion in San Diego, which was near me. He was from Florida, so we went to the reunion together. So that was very nice. I also wanted to say one more thing about the helicopter pilots. You chopper pilots were the best damn thing that happened to me and all my wounded soldiers. You guys were there for protection. You enabled the medics to save lives. You were there for dust-offs. You were there for food and supplies. You were there for transportation, combat assaults. You brought in barbers and donut dollies. Even got Mets players into my platoon. When I went in October '69, the Mets were playing in the World Series, and they won the World Series, the Miracle Mets. Then in March or April, a chopper came in with three of with the amazing Mets on board, dressed in fatigues, and they came to our platoon, and I got their autographs. It was Ron Swoboda, Jim Mudcat Grant, and Milt Pappas. So you helicopter choppers were the greatest, and I appreciate each and every one of you, and believe me, I mean it. Thank you so much. Is there any questions? This gentleman is asking, this is David Hayward, and he asked me if how many
Hey, Wally, there you go, never mind.
So, can we ask questions?
Yeah, you should be able to ask questions, and Wally, go ahead and stop your share.
Okay.
Here we go.
There we go.
Okay. So,
And now do I push the green thing again? That's it.
No, just stop your share, and then I'll start your video. Oh, never mind, it started. I see you on screen.
I'm up there. Okay.
so
So are there any questions?
this is Dwight. I've got a few questions.
Alrighty.
So, obviously conscious objector. Do you mind?
We seem to have an audio problem.
I couldn't quite understand you, Bob.
If you did, you're a miracle.
Hey, Jim.
Why?
Why?
You guys seem to be having a connection problem. Yeah, your audio's breaking up.
Okay, do I need to do anything, Peter?
No, Wally, you're fine.
Okay. It's Marty and Bob?
It's Marty and Bob that are having the issue there with whatever system they're on.
Alrighty.
Wally, I gotta sign off. I got a doc's appointment.
Okay, Jim, thanks for listening, brother.
See you guys.
Hey, Jim, join us.
Hey, Wally, I have a question.
I'll work on him, Frank. I'll work on him, Gary.
Okay, Wally, good.
Hey, Wally, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Being a CO, but you said you were a tunnel rat. Did you carry a 45, and how did that work out for you?
No, I did not have a 45. I was expert with a 45 in my training, and my sergeant kept wanting to give me a 45, but I said I got this flashlight and all that. That's all I need. And you didn't really need a weapon in the caves. You just had to avoid booby traps.
Just a punchy stick.
Just those punji sticks and the fish lines. Yeah, with the grenade, the frags. Boy, that was the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you never ran across anybody in the hole that you had to combat?
Never ran across somebody. I ran in.
Wally.
Hello. We did run into huge caverns that had, remnants. There was even a Coca-Cola bottle we found, and some magazines and stuff, and all the Chu Hoi pamphlets, but never a person. Right.
A Canadian version of a Forster.
So, Wally, was the idea that flashlight in your face and scare them?
Yeah, that would be a great idea. Luckily, I didn't run into any of them.
So my question, I broke up on you earlier. My question was, do you mind sharing your reason for being a CO? Was it because of religious? Was it moral? What was the reason for being a CO? I was just interested.
It was definitely moral. Like I said in my original meeting, I had watched a movie with Gary Cooper, Sergeant York, in World War I. And they showed first his family life up in the hills with a musket, and he was a crack shot, a perfect shot and everything. But he was morally opposed to going to the war. His mom and family finally talked him into going, but he had his rifle, but he never used it. But he captured 114 Germans and brought them back them to be concealed by us, captured by us. And then just through my life, my mom died early, and I had a great uncle that had got killed in a war, and I was all medically oriented. My family was medically oriented, and I just wanted to go save people instead of shoot at them. And it actually worked out well, guilt-wise too, because I never had to have that guilt that so many soldiers got from killing all of those people. Does that answer your question?
Well, I have a question. What
Yes,
did you expect for your service?
After my service, I went to medical school. I became a psychiatrist. I went to University Autónoma in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I did my internship and residency down there. I was going to stay and live for a while, and then I came back to the States, and I finally got rid of. I left medicine, and I went back to the theater, which was my love. And I was there. I've been there the last 25 years.
Thank you.
Which theater, Wally?
The Laguna Playhouse in Laguna Beach.
And
Oh, wow.
Yeah. there's a couple of Dave Harewood and Bob. There's a couple of and even Ed, Captain Ed Moore. They're all subscribers down there, so I see them. Or I did see them every time. We're closed now, so yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm going to leave. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is the second time I've seen this. I wish my granddaughter had a chance to see it.
Well,
But she'll show up one of these times, and I think you're also, as a group, you're going to enjoy Bill Reels. He's a colonel that was in the Signal Corps, and he and I were. He was the president of MOA, Military Officers Association.
Right. Oh, so, that's great.
He'll be joining us here, I'm sure, on the next time. If not, I'll have to have a discussion with him. Or better yet, his wife. That's the best way to go.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm trying to do.
Adios, guys. Thank you.
Al, before you leave, Al,
Yeah. Yes.
I think I remember, were you part of, speaking of the theater, the vets do a play at the Chance Theater? Is that?
Yeah, I've done that about 6 times.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I've heard
Yeah.
great things about it.
They have my name on one chair. It's called Narcissistic Al.
Oh my God.
Adios.
Great job.
Leaving meeting. Hey,
Good job, Wally.
Thank
Hey,
you so
Wally.
much. Yes, sir.
Wally.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you watch the movie Hacksaw Ridge about Desmond Doss?
Yes, I did.
I bet that brought back some reflections of your experiences as a medic and the
I got
conscientious
chills right now.
Yeah.
I got chills right now. You're right.
Yeah.
Several of them have brought back many memories like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my best soldier, and I think I said this the last time you gave the presentation, was my medic. He was the bravest soldier I had, but he carried a sawed-off shotgun.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow! Yeah.
A rarity in Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, that's just because if he was treating somebody and got close, then he would.
That's exactly what his theory, his thinking. That's right. Just like we as lieutenants had to carry a 45 because if we were going to be shooting our weapons, oftentimes it was because they were right on top of us.
There you go. I understand. Anybody else? That's it?
Wally, you said that you were a psychologist after?
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. Have you ever treated veterans with PTSD?
I have treated many veterans with PTSD. I did even in medical school. There were there in Guadalajara, Mexico. There is an American colony that had World War II and World War at this time and World War I veterans, and they would be part of my therapy. And this was before we even knew about PTSD. It was all battle fatigue or shell shock. And so I talked to all of these veterans, World War I and World War II veterans, and they accepted me because they knew I was a Vietnam veteran. So I have dealt with a lot of the PTSD. Well, first it was a syndrome, and now it's a disorder.
Something that was shared on the last video presentation I watched was that there were soldiers who had a difficult time while in country, and he made the comment that those may be the soldiers who were having a harder time with PTSD after leaving. He commented that for him it was just surviving the time, and he got, he ran into men while in country who were very traumatized, during the fighting, whereas he didn't have that same reaction. And just thinking, it seems like it's becoming less stigmatized. We're encouraging soldiers to seek out help and to talk more than maybe generations ago.
That's perfect, Allison. I wish I would have heard that. That has so much validity because even now we know that one traumatic event can cause post-traumatic stress syndrome. So imagine somebody going through an entire year or entire 6-month tour like that. and also a lot of it has to do with in Vietnam. Well, most wars, I guess. It was all the younger, so many young people, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and we hadn't even established our own identity. So I think I was very well prepared for that. I was 20 instead of that a little earlier, but I was well trained, and my family unit was good, and so I was pretty well stable. I think that helped me a lot, not only to evade that for myself, but to help other people that would be more susceptible to that.
Thank you for everything you've done, Wally, and thank you for the presentation today.
My pleasure, Allison. Any other questions? Alrighty.
So we have somebody coming in. I don't see him.
Hello, that's a telephone call?
Telephone call?
Or there's a telephone number on my screen here.
Wally, you provided a Wally.
It's
Yes.
Dwight, because I keep getting dropped. I called in on my phone.
Oh, dig it. What's your question?
Oh no, I don't have a. You answered my question earlier about
that's right.
the CEO and everything. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome home, and thank you for taking care of all those guys and getting them home. I mean, I'm sure there's guys telling stories about this crazy medic that refused to carry a gun that saved their life and got them patched up.
Well, I hope there's a lot of those guys out there.
Hey, I want to know, Wally, I want to know, you got your sandwiches and the cost of them and the drinks on the side there. Are you offering to sell those, make those sandwiches for us and the drinks at that price?
No, you gotta come here to get it. I don't have any to-go service.
Wally, I had a quick question, if that's okay.
Sure, Brent. What is it?
You mentioned the donut dollies that visited you in Vietnam, and I was wondering how impactful was that visit, and what did the donut dollies mean to you guys?
Oh, that was a huge impact. Let me tell you. And then actually, it was coincidentally, it was just like about 2 days after we had just been in a big firefight. And here they came in their uniforms, Red Cross uniforms, and they literally did bring donuts and coffee and things. I think there was 3 or 4 of them on the chopper, and maybe some of you guys have even transported them. And it was wonderful just to talk to a woman or talk to an outside, someone who wasn't a soldier or something. And I do have a picture of one of the donut dollies that I didn't include in my talk, but I have a great picture of one of them that I look at it with fond memories a lot of times.
That's great.
Thank you, Wally. I really appreciate that, and thank you for everything you've done for.
Well, I appreciate that, Brent. Thank you. I mean, all of us veterans did a lot. I guess that's it, eh?
Hey, one question I have. This is Dwight. One question I do have. I not to disagree with you a little bit, but I have thought, and again, you were in the action, so it's a little different. But I thought the people that had to patch people up might have it worse than the people that are actually, you know what I mean? So you saw the damage that was done, and nurses and doctors had to, to repair the devastation. So, I mean, how do medics deal with that, or how do medics deal with, they're trying to save somebody's life and maybe they're not able to or whatnot? I mean, that seems like that would be a tremendous burden to carry, as far as that responsibility and having to see the devastation that was done by the damage from the bombs or from the grenades or from the rifles.
I agree totally. I think I was lucky in the sense that I was so well trained and so like I say, used to seeing surgeries and blood and tissue at my dad's place in the animal hospital, and all of and I was pretty well straightforward. I don't know. I was happy, completely happy with myself, and so it didn't affect me in the same way, I don't think, as a lot of those medics. And also, as I said, the Special Forces training was a year longer than the 6-week program that most of these medics had. And so a lot of those medics might have definitely been affected by it much more than I.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just wondering about that, because I can't imagine having to deal with putting people back together, right? But appreciate all you did.
I didn't mind that at all. Even with those.
Dwight, I just want to say something about what he did. In Vietnam, the medic was totally different than what we would have imagined a medic to be years before in World War I, World War II, and even before that, where the enemy would grant that medic the right to go out and treat the injured. In Vietnam, the medics were in the middle of it. Wherever that wounded person was, that's where they were. That's where they went. So they were right in the midst of wherever the contact was. And so you really got to tip your hat to them, because they went to, instead of running away, they went to the action. Just like, in 9/11, we're talking about 9/11 on this Friday, and 9/11, the first responders went into the building. Well, that's what the medics did. They went into the action. They didn't bring them back to them. Sometimes they did, but very often that medic was going into the action.
Yeah, that's very true. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, you did not carry a weapon. Were any other medics that you knew that did follow that policy, or did most of them carry a weapon of some type?
I met quite a few other medics there that were in our company and some other companies when we would do a big, big search and destroy mission or something. But no, all of them had weapons. And there was one guy that was a friend of mine, actually. He was in the Alpha Company, and he'd come and visit. They'd patrol through our valley every once in a while, and he'd like to be the point man. He carried a thumper. He carried a 79. But
his lieutenant let him be the point man.
His lieutenant let him be the point man.
Oh my gosh.
Like Frank said, you're in the middle of everything.
Yep.
Sometimes you might have to protect the person you're trying to patch up.
Yes. Right. There were several times where I had to stay by the wounded until the dust-off got there. Yes. There was never a firefight we had where we did not get the dust off. We finished them all, or everybody was, like I say, the VC, they ran away or split or were killed or something. But there was one incident even that there was only three other infantrymen in the platoon by the time the dust office got there. Myself, the wounded guy, and three other guys in our company. Yeah.
Well, I've got to cut off. This is Dwight. Thank you so much, y'all, and everybody else have a great day.
All right, Dwight, you too.
Dwight.
Thank you so much.
Wally, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I had a medic and with an engineer company, and I told him that if we get in a firefight, for him to hide or get down and we'll bring the wounded men to him. And one of the firefights we were in, here he came running down the road to treat the wounded, and he was killed. There's something that, were medics supposed to, someone yells medic, you're supposed to run no matter what?
Well, I don't know if you were supposed to or not, Tim, but I did. As soon as I heard that call, I was there. Boom! Like that guy in the Claymore, I was down there. Like the firefights, I was there. There were several other times where the guy got shot in front of me and behind me. There was other times when we were in a stand down and one of the medics on another platoon got shot, and so I just ran over to his platoon and started taking care of. I think it was just an individual thing. You're not really trained to automatically do it, but I think most of us medics, we had that in our mind. I mean, that's what we were there for, and I was there for even more. That's what I was there for, being a CO. So I know I never faltered. I never hesitated, like you see in the movies, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there were a lot. I'm sure there were a lot of medics that didn't want to do that, or like you say, stay back a little bit, right? Or were more cautious than I, right?
Well, I had 100 men with me, and I could have brought the wounded men back to him where he was safely hidden, but that was not his motto.
Right, right, yeah. Right. We all had our own mottos, I think, on that call.
You know, one thing about the helicopters coming in, I can remember vividly. Medevacs had a medic on board, at least one medic.
Correct.
So you could transfer the patient who you triage in the field to the helicopter. That medic would take over. Now, when I was flying slicks, we were returning to the field, and we would pick up your wounded. Sometimes you guys, the medic would jump on board to stay with that patient. Well, that left the rest but all we had to do was get them to a hospital or someplace where they could be taken care of, and we had to take that medic back to his unit. How do you think he felt?
Wow. Yeah, going back like that.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I say. That's why the medic that I replaced. He had 2 more weeks to go. That's why he jumped on and went with his.
I'm out of here, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think medics were just as crazy as helicopter pilots.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. A couple of times I would go on. I would just jump at night. I would jump on a dust off and just ride around with them and be an extra medic.
That's
I
awesome.
did that 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That says a lot about you.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, you were in the Bangsong, Europe, north of where I was at, and if you're
Bangsong, Ando Valley.
Yeah. And if you remember, there were a number of mountains where there were medical facilities that the VC had built into the hills, into the mountains. And I remember we were doing a joint, the Koreans I was supporting Koreans, and then the 173rd was on the other side of the mountain. So literally it was a dual penetration. And they found something like a 50 or 100 bed hospital in this thing. It was unbelievable. Did you ever go in one?
Yeah, no, like I say, we found some huge caves, and that could have been used like that. But I never ran into a hospital, and we did come in contact with the rocks too. They were awesome. Oh my God!
Yeah,
the VC were incredibly afraid of the rocks. Yeah.
Very, very much. We should have turned the war over to them.
Shot and then ask questions.
Yeah, well, if they took Vietnam, would be South Korea.
They never asked questions.
Or didn't ask questions at all, right?
Right.
Hey, thank you for what you did. That was awesome.
Thank you too, Jim.